Taxi! XL Arena, please.
No worries.
What are you doing out of the XL then?
Some unfinished business.
Yes, that's right. We're jumping the man looking to make history this weekend. Jake Dennis joins us now. Jake, very good morning. Hello, Jake. How are we doing?
Can you change the station, please?
Thanks very much, man.
Hello and welcome. The fight for the title is very much on. It's the grand final weekend, the double-header at the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship at the Hankook London E-Prix. Now the title fight is going right down to the wire. I have no idea what is going to happen, but I can guarantee you one thing. We are going to raise the roof here at the Excel Centre, and I'm delighted to say that joining us along for the ride is a man who knows a thing or two about winning championships and lifting very heavy and large trophies. It's four-time Indy champion and three-time Indy 500 winner, Dario Franchitti. Dario, welcome back.
Thanks, Nikki.
I mean, this is exciting stuff. We're in the final, the double-header weekend. There are four championship rivals, but ultimately this is a race between Andretti driver Jake Dennis and Envision driver Nick Cassidy. Just 24 points in it.
It all comes down to this, doesn't it? The teams have been working all season for this. And anything can happen, though. We think, people are saying, oh, Jake Dennis has got one hand on the trophy. Absolutely not.
No,
if we proved anything in
Formula E.
Rome, Nick Cassidy was going along in a great position. Mitch Evans makes the smallest mistake. And then the next thing you see, and here we see a replay of it right now, Mitch Evans, slight mistake. Next thing he's on top of Nick Cassidy. Nick Cassidy's now got a 24-point deficit in the championship. Just happens in the blink of an eye. So it's absolutely all to play for today and potentially tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. That really had catastrophic consequences, really. No points for Mitch Evans or Nick Cassidy. And of course, Jake Dennis managed to seal the win in Rome. Now, Jake Dennis is also on happy hunting ground. Not only is this home soil for British racing driver, but also he's won twice out of 4 races here at the Excel Centre. So ultimately, he must have a little bit of extra confidence coming into the race weekend. We can see here the win that he had last year.
Oh, absolutely right. He has been mighty here, and he's been mighty the rest of the season too. So many podiums, and he's definitely the man to beat. But right now, all he can do is control what he can control, not worry about other title contenders, and it starts right now with qualifying.
Easier said than done, that's for sure. Now, we are very lucky because we've got a very decorated athlete with us in the house at the Excel Centre. He also knows a thing or two about going around in circles very, very fast, but normally under his own steam, and he's with Bradzi.
Very good point, Nick. It's always a privilege to talk to sporting excellence, which Sir Chris Hoy is exactly that. But not only in riding bikes, you also love motorsport.
I do, yeah. Since retiring from cycling, it started out as a hobby. It's become a bit of an obsession. I competed at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2016. I've raced in GT cars. I've actually driven a Formula E Gen 2 car in Rome, and recently drove an Extreme E car in Dumfries. So yeah, very, very fortunate to be getting all these opportunities, but I'm a massive fan, yeah.
Which meant you were the perfect person to talk to Jake Dennis. Currently his car's behind us here. You can almost feel the pressure behind us. That's building. He's at the top of the championship, but he spoke to you, a film we'll get to see later on in the race show, about that pressure and about winning.
Yeah, I guess he's dealing with it incredibly well from what I could pick up from the interview we had, the chat we had. He's not trying to play down the importance of this weekend. This is a massive opportunity. It's a unique opportunity to win a world title in front of a home crowd. But I think he's dealing with it by focusing on what he has control over. And yeah, he's got the eye of the tiger. You can see it in him when we had a quick chat earlier on.
I'll be fascinated to watch that, and almost there's a parallel between his story and yours. If we go back to the 7th of August, London 2012, the Kirin final, every person in the country thinks, well, obviously Sir Chris Hoy's going to win, an unprecedented 6th gold. What were those final moments like when you were about to go?
That's probably the worst part, if I'm being honest. It's the few moments before you get onto the bike or get into the car. Once you kind of switch on to that race mentality, you're blocking everything else out. Before you get in, there's the risk of all these negative thoughts or distracting thoughts popping into your head. You start thinking about what it'd be like to win, what would happen if you didn't win. And if you can, once you can get into the seat, once you can switch onto race mode, that's when it starts to feel a bit more enjoyable, if you can call it that.
Thank you very much. Actually, what's testimony to Jake Dennis, we've seen him walking around, his shoulders are back, his chest is out, he looks confident, but how will he get on in qualifying, which you'll need to set him up for a perfect race? Let's find out, and we head over to Karun to take a look at this incredible, unique track.
Yeah, thank you, Razi. Let's go on board here with Mitch Evans in the Jaguar racing car. This was from free practice earlier this morning. It's a busy track, 20 corners, 10 of them under the roof as we start here at turns 1 and 2, a sequence going left, right. Then you turn into turn 3, and turns 4 and 5 come up very quickly. Bit of daylight there, but then you start dropping downhill, a short ramp. Now I'm going to slow it down because there's a compression just at the bottom of the strip. Watch Mitch's hands there, winds on a whole lot of steering lock and has to turn completely, look at him there, completely the other way. So it is a physical track for the drivers as well. They don't get much of a rest. Turn 9 launches you into the sunshine here, a little bit of a bump at the apex. And this is the only time, really, that the drivers get a little bit of a break, apart from the start-finish straight. It doesn't last, and they get down into the chicane. Now watch how he attacks that curb there. You have to judge that perfectly, because if you get a little bit too greedy and get on that yellow bit there, sorry, the white bit there, it'll launch the car off into that barrier over there. So you do have to be careful. My drawings of arrows are terrible. I'll work on that. Anyway, coming through the chicane, and now we head towards the attack mode activation. This is where it'll be in the race, but in qualifying, of course, it doesn't matter. Turn 16, tricky braking spot, because you've got a couple of little kinks in the road, and the car on the rear of the car always wants to dance around here. Winding yourself around now towards the end of the lap, it launches uphill sharply towards the penultimate right-hander. We often see drivers getting a little bit greedy. You go over this little jump there, and you miss the apex, but Mitch on this occasion, look how close he was to that wall, superbly judged. And then coming up to the last corner, left-hander, he had a bit of traffic on this occasion. They go off into the pits, and that opens up the line for him to get up to the timing line. Really, really important to be precise, but also aggressive with the wheel here, with all those changes of direction and a lot of slow-speed corners to make sure you get good exits.
Brilliant, thanks, Karun. Excellent insight there, and you can't just not love this indoor-outdoor track. It really is so unique. But we're moments away from getting into qualifying. This can really make or break a championship title fight here today. How critical is it?
It's massively critical, Nikki. You've got to, if you're a title contender, you've got to get through group qualifying. You've got to get into the duels, because if you don't, you're in that midfield Wild West. You can get taken out in the first lap. You've got to get up front, control your own destiny, and that is so important for them. It's also important for other drivers out there who are racing for their jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. So much at stake here today. And of course, 3 critical championship points available for pole position. Well, that's it. Let's go into our penultimate qualifying of the season and find out who is going to line up on the front row of the grid here in London.
Round 15 of the 2023 ABB FIA Formula E World Championship for the Hankook London E-Prix. The final 2 rounds of the season. 2 groups of qualifying coming up. And here is the first. Jake Dennis for Avalanche Andretti, Mitch Evans, Jean-Eric Vergne, Antonio Felix da Costa, Sam Bird, Stoffel Van Dorn, Rene Rast, Eduardo Mortara, Andre Lotterer, Sergio Sette Camara, and then Robin Freins. Robin ended up in the wall actually at the end of free practice 2 on a damp track earlier on here this morning. The team have been working overtime to get the car fixed. Damage wasn't too bad, but nonetheless going into this first qualifying session on the back foot ever so slightly. Well, here is the London circuit, a very unique one on the Formula E calendar, the only indoor-outdoor track that we have for 2023. And you can see there, from turn 16, this is where the attack mode is activated, but it's actually been newly modified over the course of this year because of the building works that are ongoing, essentially. So it's a lot more fast and flowing through that final sector. Anyway, green flag is now waved, session is underway. Don't forget the Formula E Predictor app on the bottom left corner of your screen if you want to get involved and see who you think is going to come out on top when it comes up to the duels in qualifying. Then feel free to get in touch and we will be talking about that a little bit later on. But here's the man with a lot of pressure on him, Jake Dennis, just exiting pit lane then. and he will be looking for a very strong qualifying result here this afternoon. A very tricky technical circuit, overtaking opportunities are far and few in between, and if you're mired down in the pack, that's going to be a really difficult set of circumstances for Jake Dennis to deal with. So getting himself out of the group's qualifying stages into the duels, Dario, very important.
Hi, Tom. Yeah, absolutely. I can't emphasize enough how important these next laps are. And because we saw a bit of rain this morning, the track's going to evolve a little bit, keep getting quicker. There's rubber going to go down. There might be some damp spots that will eventually go away as this next 11 minutes continue. You've got to be inch perfect here and carry every bit of speed you can, get good exits. Don't leave anything on the table, but do not make a mistake either, because as you see, there's no runoff area. The walls are there, ready to bite.
Absolutely. Well, I was just talking down to the team at Jaguar after free practice too, and they said, oh, the results weren't necessarily representative of where we thought we should be, but we're confident that we have got good pace. And you've got both Jaguar drivers in this session, Mitch Evans and Sam Bird. They got a front row lockout for round 13 in Rome just a couple of weeks ago, and the Jaguars look like they're going to be strong here this weekend in particular.
Yeah, I think they will, absolutely, as they have been most of the season. But the race this afternoon, it's a tight and twisty track. There's going to be some slipstreaming, but you want to, I would say for me, I want to qualify. I certainly want to get into the duels just to be in that top 8 positions. If I'm this man, clearly you want to be on pole position, but you've got to try and limit your downside too.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Jake Dennis's shoulders. 24 points, the advantage he has in the championship. He needs at least 30 points by the end of the race this afternoon to be crowned as the 2023 ABB FIA Formula E World Champion. A lot of pressure on his shoulders. Here's Mitch Evans. He was in the wars last time at Rome. A tale of two halves, really, for the Kiwi. Delight for him for round 13 on Saturday. Round 14 on Sunday, he went over the back of Nick Cassidy, eliminating both of the Kiwis effectively from the race. Certainly Mitch Evans was out of that one, and as such put him on the back foot and has kind of eroded his title chances. Though 4 drivers are mathematically still in the equation, we're expecting it to go down to the wire between Dennis and Cassidy.
Yeah, a lot of that will depend on what Jake Dennis does this afternoon. If he can make his life a little bit easier, he certainly wants to tie it up this afternoon. Part of me, obviously I'd like to see it as a broadcaster, I'd like to see it go into tomorrow, but if I'm on my driving head on, Jake Dennis would like to get it tied up, as with that one, Michael Andretti.
Yeah, Michael wasn't actually scheduled to be here this weekend, and then made the last-minute trek over to come and support the team.
And I have to say, Michael was a competitor, teammate, team boss for a long time. He's a friend. He doesn't like traveling unless he absolutely has to outside the US, and he basically he wanted to be here for this. He's got such a busy schedule with IndyCar, with Formula E, with all kinds of things, and he just really wanted to be here to see if his man Jake Dennis could tie up this Formula E World Championship.
Well, here is Dennis on one of his many flying laps, I'm sure, over the course of this session, just threading the eye of a needle as he comes down in towards turn 16. This is where Robin Frines ended up in the wall at the end of free practice 2. The team have managed to get that car fixed. Frines is now out on track here this afternoon ahead of qualifying, so he'll be hoping to get some mileage under his belt. The App Coopers have not gone particularly well so far in 2023, so if he can make it into the duels, it'll be a very welcome result. You can see there on the left-hand side of your screen the tower graphic. That indicates the top 4 positions as Jake Dennis goes to the top of the pile by 0.6 of a second. They will progress forwards into the duels. We've got 2 groups of qualifying, 11 drivers in each. 4 drivers will go through into the duels, and that is what we will take place with the quarterfinals a little bit later on here.
Got to say, Jake Dennis, decent lap, quickest, sector 1, sector 2. Gave away just a fraction through sector 3, but looking good so far. 0.6 of a second gap, which is massive.
I've got something loose in my seat on my right-hand side. It's hitting my elbow every time I turn.
I can't tell you how annoying that will be. It sounds trivial. It is not. It will be just interfering with his concentration. It could be something as simple as a cable or a part of the seat material has come loose, but you're so sensitive in the car to feel everything that's going on that, yeah, that will really be annoying. As you see, Edo Mortara coming up now in the Maserati to turn 20. Good traction coming off the corner and up to P2.
Yeah, nice lap there from Edo Mortara. As he elevates himself up the order. Andre Lotterer not too far adrift of setting his next representative lap time. You can see this is turn 1 and turn 2. Going to be a real pinch point in the race, isn't it?
Yeah, the first lap, 1, 2, 3, 4 into 5. Could even continue through 6, 7 on that opening lap, and that's why I think it's so important to get up front in the qualifying order to just minimise the chances of getting involved in somebody else's incident. Sergio Sette Camera, the Neo cars, they've been quick in qualifying this year, not the most efficient maybe in the race, but if these guys, him and his teammate Dan Ticktum, can qualify up front, they can have a strong result due to the nature of the race I think we're going to see this afternoon.
Yeah, we saw that with Dan Ticktum actually last time out at Rome. He managed to get himself up inside the duels, which was a very impressive performance. Sette Camera also managed to get some points on the board with the top 10 finish for round 13 on Saturday. He makes his way through. Bit of team radio here from Jake Dennis just coming in. I'll have a listen and see what he is going to be saying to the team in just a couple. Here we go.
I've just had a huge power cut, exit turn 9. I have no idea why. Just lost all power for about 2 seconds.
Well, that's going to put you on the back foot, isn't it?
I want less SLC and SLS. Turn 9 then, mate. I can't afford that on a lap.
Okay, so he's actually, it sounds like one of the systems is cut in rather than an electronic issue. It's actually the car itself is just maybe too aggressive in one of the control systems.
You can hear the stress in his voice there, couldn't you? He's been doing a lot of PR, keeping himself really busy. Unsurprising, of course, home event for him. He's the home favourite for the title, could wrap it up here this weekend. A lot of pressure, though, on his shoulders.
Yeah, but he didn't lose his temper. He's still very cool, very calm. And you'll see that with him, but also with Nick Cassidy. Nick Cassidy, I've said it before, he knows how to win championships. You know, he's won so many in Japan, and he's just done a first-class job. So Jake Dennis, this is his first chance at a really big...
Let's have a listen. Let's see if we can hear the power cut. There.
There was a spike. If you notice, the back wheels came off the ground just before it, so I don't know if they're trying to limit power spikes, which can cause that, which can give you a penalty if you do that. And maybe that was just a bit too aggressive.
Well, either way, he's had a good lap time so far, some 3.8 of a second faster than Edo Mortara, but yeah, still 4.5 minutes left in this session and time for him to improve. Just looking here at Jean-Eric Vergne, double Formula E champion. Last time he made it into the duels was back in Jakarta, actually. I understand that Jake Dennis was saying that it sounds like it was a buckle that was loose on his car. And that's what he was saying about the cockpit, so it's not been a particularly fortuitous session for him, despite the pace that he has had so far in this one. You can see a picture-in-picture here as the two DS Penske's thread the eye of a needle through. Jean-Eric Vergne in the larger picture, Stoffel Vandoorne in the bottom right-hand side of the corner. And as they make their way through, Vergne not on a particularly powerful push lap at the moment. They're both sitting in 10th and 11th place so far here in this session.
And again, there's 300 kilowatts of power for this session, which is race power. Then for qualifying, dual stages, you go up to 350 kilowatts of power, and you've got to do it in one lap. There's no warm-ups, there's no multiple laps. It's go. One shot at it. You're either quicker than another driver, or you're not. And that puts a tremendous amount of pressure, even more pressure on these drivers. Look how much speed Vandoorne carried through turn 1, though. Look how the car responds on this very abrasive surface through turns 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, you can see there as we look here at Andre Lotterer, Jake Dennis's teammate, down in towards turn 16. Lotterer would love to get himself into the duels in what could be his final weekend in Formula E. Looks like he's going to be moving his way over to the World Endurance Championship.
Yeah, factory Porsche driver there already, Porsche powertrain in the Andretti car. But I think I can see Andre doing just full-time World Endurance, multiple Le Mans winner.
Still good pace underneath him, up into third.
Oh, he's not slow, Andre. There's no doubt. He's had a tough season, but he's got the pace to get the job done.
Jake Dennis still in the pit lane then with, what's that, 2.5 minutes now remaining of the session. Only him and Sergio Sette Camera, who are currently not out on active laps on the track. Dennis does exit pit lane then, so they've managed to solve those issues, and he'll go out for one final run here in this session. Vandoorne looking pretty good. Personal best sector times now coming in. The track's getting faster and faster. Top 4 drivers make it through as Vergne goes second quickest.
Yeah, when you see the purple, that's quickest of anybody. When you see the green, that's a personal best. So we see Stoffel Vandoorne second quickest. Now they're catching Jake Dennis only. Well, Sam Bird up to P2, home driver. We've not talked about Sam Bird much at all. So focused on Jake Dennis and this championship battle with Nick Cassidy.
Yeah, good lap from Sam Bird. We know he's...
Mitch Evans now, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Up to P1.
Yeah, two Jaguars were expecting them to be strong, but this is a really good performance from them in the last couple of minutes of qualifying then, as we wait to see what Sergio Sette Camara can do. He's now out of the pit lane. Riding on board we are, meanwhile, with Rene Rast, the special livery on that McLaren here this weekend, designed in conjunction with AI, and looks very, very striking. This is down in towards turn 16. Look how bumpy the track is going into there.
That's smooth by Formula E standards, Tom. You see his teammate just having a look there. Jake Hughes in the picture-in-picture.
Guinness World Record holder Jake Hughes as well. Rene Rast.
Quickest of anybody through Sector 2, Tom.
Yeah, he's looking really strong, isn't he? Coming through turn number 20. What is Rene Rast going to be able to do in that neon McLaren as he breaks the beam to the timing line? Second fastest then, with just over a minute left on the board here. You get the sense that this is going to be a case of a last driver across the line, isn't it? Oh, but he has a big old dab of Oppo in turn 1 there.
Yeah, that's that lap ruined because he's completely out of position there for turn 2. Carried massive speed into 1. That's that lap gone. He hasn't got time to get round again to start another lap before the checkered flag comes out. How much is that going to bite him?
Well, let's wait and see. Personal best times coming in here for the likes of Robin Frines. He's mired down in 11th place at the moment. Edo Mortara also on a push lap then. What about Frines as he comes to the line? Only proves up to 10th fastest in the app Cupra for now. That machine has not been going well so far here in 2023, and indeed in London proves to continue to be the case. Edo Mortara, meanwhile, the Maserati, we know it was quick in Rome a couple of weeks ago, managed to get onto the podium on home soil, but traffic coming through there, so Mortara just backs out of that lap right before the end of it. Just giving himself a bit of time here, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got to cross. He's got 7 seconds, plenty of time not to cross the timing line. Jake Dennis, 24.9 through that first sector. I'm not sure that's enough to...
It's not a personal best, is
No.
it? So Dennis then, with the pressure on him, third quickest it stands at the moment, needs to get himself into the duels. It's critical for his championship challenge here this afternoon.
24.7 for Mitch Evans through sector 1, quickest of all, but Dennis, quickest of anybody through sector 2. It's going to be tight. This is so important for this championship fight.
Yeah, this is going to be crucial then. What about Jean-Eric Vergne as he rounds the final corner? Checkered flag is out for the Frenchman, improves up to 5th fastest. No appearance in the duels for round 15 for Jean-Eric Vergne. Stoffel Van Dorn as well, trying to get himself up the order. What about Jake Dennis then? Fastest overall in the second sector, goes to the top of the pile by 0.03 of a second. Critical for Dennis, and he managed to deliver. What about Stoffel Van Dorn? 6th fastest for him at the moment, goes up to 3rd. Knocks out Sam Bird as it stands for now, but Bird's about to retaliate. He comes to the line and can't do it. Only 5th fastest for the Brits. Checkered flag reigns then for the remaining drivers. Sergio Sette Camara, 8th fastest for him. Da Costa goes into 8th as well, demotes him down. Edo Mortara only improves up to 6th fastest. So then, 4 drivers that make it through into the duels. Jake Dennis, Mitch Evans, Stoffel Van Dorn, and then by the skin of his teeth, Rene Rast, despite that mistake on his final flying lap. His time was good enough, and he progresses forwards.
That's a big move by Jake Dennis. It's like, right, I've done my bit. Show us what you've got. Fantastic stuff. Nick Cassidy now out in Group 2. It's over to him.
Absolutely, pressure certainly on now to Nick Cassidy. Look inside the garages at the moment. There is Ian James, team principal for McLaren. Rene Rast progressing forwards into the duels. He'll be delighted with that. And you can see the remaining team principals here. Everybody looking relatively calm and composed at this particular point.
Yeah, they've got their poker faces on, haven't they? I would hate that, to have that. That was a great thing about a helmet. Nobody could see your emotions in there. So as soon as you got out, you had to sort of switch on the old race face. But this man, great job.
Yeah, great stuff from Jake Dennis. Really able to deliver right when it counted.
Okay, hit the wall.
So progresses forwards then into the duels, but had a collision with the wall by the sounds of things. Clearly not enough to upset things too much.
That's the key, isn't it? The guys will be inspecting at the Andretti team, looking at the back of it, seeing if there's any damage, but I think he's all right.
Absolutely. Well then, at the end of Group A, what an exciting session that proved to be. And it's Jake Dennis, Mitch Evans, Stoffel Van Dorn and Rene Rast who move forwards into the duels. Just a 10th of a second between the top 4 drivers. Sadly, we say goodbye to Sam Bird, Edo Mortara, Jean-Eric Vergne, Lotterer, Felix da Costa, Sette Camara and Robin Frines. They will progress no further forwards. Well then, Group B qualifying coming along the way in just a few moments' time. Let's head down to Saunders, though, before we get the next group underway.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. Now I'm here with Roger Griffiths, team principal of Avalanche Andretti. Now that is exactly what Jake needed to do at this point of the day.
Yeah, I mean, great job by Jake. P1 right in the last dying seconds. A little nervous because he brushed the wall on his previous lap, but he was able to gather it back up and delivered when he really needed to, and that's what Jake is really capable of doing. You know, he loves this place here in front of the home fans, and, you know, as we look forward to what happens this afternoon and tomorrow, we have a series of check boxes, and first step, get into the duels, then we fight for front row position, pole position maybe, and then let's see what happens in the race. But you know, so far going to plan and everybody's very happy.
So things yesterday in that first, Jake's just coming in now to his garage, in that first free practice session, there looked like a slight bit of concern, but it seems like you span things around.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things we've learned from previous sessions is, you know, sometimes it's worth exploring where the boundaries are on car setup. So that was something we did. We didn't run as much as we'd perhaps intended to in that shakedown session earlier on. We had some slight reservations about some of the new technology going onto the car. So we played it safe there. But, you know, what we got from FP1, and, you know, we made a late improvement partway through the session with some updates to the way we were running the car. That gave us good direction. And from there, we just worked on that overnight into FP2. Good, strong FP2 session for us. And then, obviously, Jake's been able to deliver, at least in the first half of qualifying. And let's see what happens in the duels.
Thanks very much, Roger.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, fantastic start for Jake Dennis there. Let's talk about the Jag guys, though. I was really hoping that Sam Bird was going to get through, so maybe he could help his teammate Mitch Evans, but that's not the case. He just missed out.
Yeah, he missed out by about a tenth. I mean, René Rast did a really good job there because he made a bit of a mistake on his lap as we see the cars heading up behind us for the second group. So, yeah, Sam didn't quite get the lap together, but at least Mitch has got through for Jags.
Yeah, absolutely. The title fight is very much still going on in these duels. Let's go back to Group B.
And the drivers out on track then for qualifying for Group B here for round 15 at London. So then, in this group, we've got Nick Cassidy, Pascal Wehrlein, Max Günther, Sebastian Buemi, Norman Nato, Jake Hughes, Sacha Fenestraz, Lucas Di Grassi, Dan Tickton, who was particularly quick this morning in the Neo, Nico Müller and Roberto Merri. So pressure is on to Nick Cassidy. He's just seen this man, Jake Dennis, deliver. Now he needs to do exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely right. And again, he'll be very aware. Nick Cassidy will be very aware that Jake Dennis has just gone quickest in that group, but he's mentally tough enough. I think he'll do what he needs to do in this session. He'll drive to the limit of his car, and he has to get into the duels to keep, I would say, this championship battle alive. Certainly make it a lot easier to fight with Jake Dennis later this afternoon. We see him go through turn 2. This is back over to the right-hand side for 3. Now watch how well the car's responding. Now it's changed surface though, and again surface changed. Downhill, here the wheel spin. It's lost all his grip now on the outside surfaces through 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to get back onto the bumpy streets of London. Here's this massive bump onto the longest straight now. All the way down to turn 10. You're now trying to look for your braking point over these bumps. Heavily on the brake. Right, left. Over the curb, right and left, but then right, there's a wall. That's going to catch somebody out this afternoon, I feel. Through the 2 kinks now, 14, 15. Not easy to be flat through there. On the brakes into 16, got to get that apex. Manages it well. Now it's a left-hander, 17. Right and 18. It's not particularly pushing massively hard yet. Up the hill, over that hump, braking. Easy to miss the apex, back onto the high grip surface. Now look how much the car just rotates straight away as it hits the high grip surface. Back to the throttle. And that first lap, 1:11.6.
Not a bad lap time there for Nick Cassidy, straight out of the blocks as he goes quickest overall then. 5 dual appearances the Kiwi has had so far in 2023. Can he make it number 6 though here this afternoon? Max Günther in the Maserati comes to the timing line. James Rossiter, team principal, in the middle there, just watching on and seeing whether he will be able to progress forwards. Pascal Wehrlein as well. Strong start to his 2023 campaign, but the wheels have somewhat fallen off of his wagon here.
And there's traffic, Tom, traffic on the outside he's had to deal with. He got out of the way, but I think it still impeded him a bit. Fourth quickest.
Yeah, not ideal there for Pascal Wehrlein. Plenty of time for him to try and turn things around, though, in this session. He's got a licence to thrill, but he wants to try and get himself up into the duels as Cassidy continues improving here. The good thing is the track is now dry outside. It was a bit damp earlier on for free practice 2, and of course that does mean it very much is more than a circuit of 2 halves, because you've got inside and outside and different surfaces to deal with already, and then it was a bit damp and greasy this morning due to some earlier rain, but it is now dry. However, of course, that water will have washed away a little bit of the rubber. Do you think that's going to affect grip levels massively or not too much?
No, I think we'll see the grip probably increase a bit quicker, the track evolution, just because of that rubber getting washed away earlier. We've seen it, Cassidy came into the pits a second ago. And Max Minter continuing on. What does this put him? P1, so he's 2.5 tenths up the road now from Nick Cassidy. Lucas Di Grassi gone P3 in the Mahindra. Sebastian Buemi, Nick Cassidy's teammate.
Goes up to the top.
Yeah.
A nice lap time there for Buemi then. Norman Nato goes second quickest as well. The Nissan's looking pretty good here this weekend, it's got to be said. Sacha Fenestraz in free practice 2 was not particularly on the pace. He was down last, actually, of the classified runners.
I think Jake Hughes just hit the wall coming off a turn 20, Tom.
Could be right there. Let's see if we get a replay of that, but he goes up to 5th fastest for now. So everybody in this session has set a lap time at the moment. Fenestraz down there in 11th place, so he's not been on a particularly fortuitous push lap at the moment.
Got to say, just watching the Abt Cupra, it just looks like it's not responding as well through the 2, 3, 4 section of track. It's not changing direction as quickly as we've seen some of the other cars do.
Nick Cassidy in the pit lane then. 7 minutes now left of this session. Time for him to get ready for another run. What's going through your mind as a driver when you sat there in the pit box? You've gone and done one run, you're ready to go out for your second and final one, and you know that's the one where the pressure's on.
The first thing you're doing is talking to the engineer, telling him what's wrong. What do you need to fix? The team of engineers, I need this is what I need to go faster. That's the key. Just get it down as few words as possible. I need this to go faster. The car's doing this. Then it's about switching off and focusing on what you can do better as a driver.
Let's have a look here at Norman Nato. Oh, locking the front axle then. It's going down into 16, isn't it?
Yeah, he's trying to get his foot off the brakes to stop it. You can see these small flat spots. But the good thing is the Hankook tyre is not very susceptible to getting flat spots that a slick tyre would.
Yeah. Sorry, that's actually down into turn 10 and 11.
Just cannot unlock it. It's so frustrating. But quick spin round. Don't take the back wing off on the wall, which we've seen before. Waiting here for the track to be clear.
Yep, so team principal then watching on as Norman Nato and now Sacha Fenestraz sitting 2nd and 4th in this session. So Fenestraz has put a good lap time in then here with 6 minutes remaining. This is teammate to Nick Cassidy, Sebastian Buemi, former champion, of course. This is Jake Hughes. Now, you said you thought he hit the wall a little bit earlier on. Coming through to the final sector, let's see if we can work out what happens.
Yeah, so this is 19. It's on the exit of this corner. Watch the right side of the car. If he didn't, give him £1 million if he can do it again.
Probably get the width of your wallet in there, I reckon, down there.
That was impressive.
Yeah, so...
Hey, James looks pretty stressed. I'm not sure.
It's always difficult to tell because he's got a bit of a poker face on.
Yeah, he does, but God, he does look a bit stressed. There's a man that doesn't look stressed. Yeah, thinking, I wish you'd get that camera out of my face and kind of focus here.
We saw that with Nick Cassidy, didn't we, after free practice 2? He came out of the car and there was a camera following him. He said, "Oh, you don't need to follow me. You can just give me 5 minutes if you like."
Yeah.
But the thing is, the pressure, the tension's on these drivers at the moment, and there's a lot of anticipation coming into this weekend.
You know what, Tom? This pressure they're under is an absolute privilege because the guys at the back of the grid and the guys in other series who haven't made it to here, they would give body parts to be under that pressure to fight for a world championship, and it's how you handle that pressure and try and handle it positively and not just get annoyed by absolutely everything and enjoy the moment because it might never happen again.
Absolutely. Well, around the final corner, ready for the first start to what could be the final run in the session here for Nick Cassidy, down in towards the first corner. Nice line through turns 1 and turn 2. Bit of traffic there on the outside, just making, I think it might be Dan Ticktum in the Neo, just making his way out into the session, but not halting Cassidy too much for now.
And at this point, he'll know if the tyres are in yet, whether he's still got to do another prep lap to get the tyre pressures, the temperatures front and rear, left and right, balanced together.
Seems like the general feedback from the drivers is that the Hankook tyres, they get onto temperature relatively quickly, but it's finding the right window for them to operate.
You've got to get them together, though. It's one thing getting the fronts in or the rears, but yeah, and Nick Cassidy's definitely on a prep lap. He's now starting to build. You see the back wheels come off the ground through the kink in the 14-15 area. Leon Price, massive part of the Envision team's success. Yeah. He's been there a long time, and it's so impressive as a customer team, as the Andretti team is, customer Porsche team, Envision, customer Jaguar team, and they've taken those powertrains and made the absolute most of them.
So Cassidy then winding himself up for another flying lap then in this session. Let's see what he is going to be able to do. Currently 8th fastest, just under half a second away from teammate Sebastian Buemi's quickest time. Again, through turn 1 and turn 2, definitely pushing on a little bit harder now in this first sector.
Yeah, car looks like it's responding well. Look at it, the change of direction, got a small bit of oversteer going into 4, but recovered very nicely. This is looking good so far. Look at it bouncing as he comes through 6. Change of direction into 7, good. It looks like it's not so good over the bump, so let's see in 9. Oh, lovely though, lovely in 9. Quickest of anybody through sector 1 by 1/10 of a second. It's looking good so far. Going to pick out your braking point into 10. Ooh, fantastic through there from Nick Cassidy.
Good traction coming through the exit of the corners as well. There for Cassidy, getting that power down.
So close to the wall though on the right. Again, another tricky braking zone coming up. We saw Robin Frantz have a crash here earlier. He's missed it.
There you go. And that's what happens when you push just a little bit too far beyond the limit for Nick Cassidy. That's his lap gone. And I was wondering if we might see a wry smile from Jake Dennis there, but not to be.
Jake Dennis put in like a gum shield.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, some drivers have used them before. Right, he's going to have to go again.
To be fair, if you clatter over some of the curbs here, you'll rattle the fillings out. So probably a good idea that he's done that. You can see what that cost Nick Cassidy there, just going wide down into 16. Just looked like he locked the rear axle going into that corner.
Just tried to brake just a fraction too late. And again, with the systems on the cars, you might not actually see the tyre physically locked, but you've run out of braking performance.
Let's have a look at Cassidy then. So this is through 15, down into 16.
Yeah, you saw a bit of smoke from the rear, as you say, Tom, and he just overdid it a little bit. So he's got time to do a cool-down lap and regroup, and he's doing a cool-down here just to get the tyres back into their operating window.
Does it cost you to lose focus when things like that happen? You know, you make a mistake, you're pushing on the limit, and then you've got to reset and go again so quick.
It's not good. It's definitely not good. But it's how you control that, and just getting yourself calm again. At this point, your focus though is so tight if you're doing the job well, and you just cannot allow anything to affect or upset you. As you see Max Günther go through the chicane. 10, 11, 12, 13 again.
Oh, it's so close through that wall.
Tell you, that wall is going to catch somebody, because the closer you get to it, the more you open the corner up, the faster you can go through there. But it's a tightrope.
Yeah, Max Günther looking for his 11th appearance in the duels this year. Bit of traffic up ahead of him as well. 53 seconds now remaining of the session, so this will be his final flying lap. And you wonder whether he might just back off coming into this final corner. No, he's not going to.
And interference.
It is, yeah. That's not good for Max Günther. That could cost him very dearly. Backs off, and he also is impeding possibly another driver there as well. If they were on a push lap, it was Jake Hughes just going through. He comes to the time in life 8th quickest for now, and you can see, well, the despondent look there for James Rossiter.
He's probably wondering why did he back off, but at the traffic, he obviously thought that was the right thing to do. Nick Cassidy, quickest of anybody though through the first sector, but again, 1.5. He's now going to think, right, when I brake for turn 16, I'm just going to leave a little more margin. As we see in the small picture, we see Jake Dennis back in the car, ready for his first duel appearance.
So close to the wall on the exit of 13 there for Nick Cassidy. Gets the front into 16 now.
Nearly 3/10 up.
Yeah, this is looking really impressive here for Nick Cassidy then. 1:11.1 is at the time to beat for him, and that's been set by Dan Ticktum. Norman Natto's taking the flag in 3rd quickest, as has Nico Müller in 5th. But what about Nick Cassidy as he comes around the final corner, ready to take the checkered flag in the Envision? He goes to the top by nearly 3.7 tenths of a second. That is an absolute gauntlet laid down for the rest of the drivers as everybody else comes through on their final flying laps. Checkered flag is out. Drivers are ready to take it. Pascal Wehrlein improves up to 4th quickest. Good lap time then from the German driver. Is anybody else going to improve? Maxi Günther does, but he only goes into 7th quickest. And Buemi's going to stay 3rd at this one. So 2 Envisions going through.
To P2.
Yeah, he jumps Ticktum.
That was the highest pressure moment. I think that's enough. Just tell me if it's not.
Yep.
So the pressure definitely on for Nick Cassidy, and he's feeling it. But he delivered exactly the same as Jake Dennis did.
That's quality from both drivers there, absolute quality. You know, Mitch Evans in there too in this fight. Pascal Wehrlein, all four of the mathematically still in contention drivers.
So just having a look at the timing screen here, Dario. Andre Lotterer under investigation for crossing the line twice after the checkered flag. Group B classification of qualifying, meanwhile, though, Nick Cassidy in the Envision. It's an Envision 1-2 with Cassidy and Buemi going through ahead of Dan Ticktum. Another strong qualifying for him ahead of Pascal Wehrlein. Nato, Muller, Gunter, Fenestraz, Hughes, Lucas Di Grassi and Roberto Merri will go no further. Well, Group B qualifying concludes then. We get ready for the quarter-final duels along the way here in London in just a couple of moments.
Well, unbelievable. All four of our championship contenders are through to the duels. Bit touch and go there for Nick Cassidy, but what a phenomenal lap. A 10th quicker than Jake Dennis.
Yeah, he delivered when it counted. I think, as you say, the cream rises, and I feel like this is sort of summary of the season, isn't it? You've got your four title contenders here. But it wasn't easy. And the fact that Envision have got both cars, 1 and 2 in the group stages, shows that they've got a strong package here, which obviously bodes well. But listen, for him, he's got the easier job, right? He's just got to go win it. He doesn't need to play the averages or play the numbers, whereas Dennis needs to do that.
Yeah, but what's really interesting, though, is that Nick Cassidy has got Sebastian Buemi up there to help him. You know, there's a massive fight going on for both the team's championship and the drivers' championship. So we're going to, well, Oliver, are we going to see Nick Cassidy and Sebastian Buemi working together? And welcome, by the way. We've got Oliver Askew joining us for this session as well, former Andretti driver who knows Jake very well. But yeah, let's talk about the Envision guys and how they can work together here.
For sure. And first of all, I have to say, I'm wearing green. I'm not supporting Envision.
Unbelievable. You fixed it.
I play no favorites here. But yes, the team game, it can come into a factor, it can come into play here this afternoon. The team championship is very close there at the top 4 positions. We can expect that to be shuffled up by the end of tomorrow. And yeah, I think it's going to be exciting rest of the session.
Oh, it is indeed. It's going to keep us on our toes, that is for sure. Let's go down to Radzi, who is somewhere in this pit lane.
Sylvain Philippi, I don't know if I've ever seen you look so delighted to have 2 drivers in duels. There's a lot of pressure now.
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, this was the main hurdle. So both drivers in the duels is really good news. Now we hopefully move forward even more. But as you saw, margins are really small as always. So yeah, incredible laps. As you saw, Nick left it to the end, pushing really, really hard. But he's a man on a mission, and you know, incredible laps from both of them, which is what I want to see.
And just very quickly, how's Nick feeling at this point? He knows he's got to be in touching distance of Jake for this to go to a second day.
Yeah, everyone is really feeling really good though, because we know the car is quick, has been quick all weekend. So we have the tools we need. It's now a question of execution and really delivering the laps when it counts. So we've done already step 1. Let's go on to step 2.
We're looking forward to step 2. Thank you for your time, Sylvain. And it's safe to say qualifying. This duels could not be any more fascinating. Bring it on.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Radzi. We'll be back then in just a couple of moments' time. So then the duels about to get underway here for round 15 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. My name is Tom Brooks, alongside me Dario Franchitti here to guide you through the action. So 4 sets of drivers going into this one, 2 in each of course. Only one will progress forwards into the semi-final from each of the 4 groups, and then we'll have the semi-finals, then the final, and of course that will decide who lines up on pole position here for this one. So in the first of the quarter-final duels, we've got Stoffel van Dorn with Mitch Evans going toe-to-toe with one another. And if we look at the statistics in terms of Mitch Evans versus Stoffel van Dorn, you'd have to say that the momentum is certainly going to be with Mitch Evans, fresh off the back of that pole position last time out in Rome.
Yeah, I mean, Stoffel, current Formula E champion, but over the off-season moved teams. The team moved powertrain manufacturers, a lot of change, and it was it's been a tough season. I don't think they've achieved what they wanted to achieve, but you know, I wouldn't count them out just yet.
You see Mitch Evans there still mathematically within the chance of the championship, third in the standings with 151 points. Best qualifier on average over the course of this season. He knows how to get the maximum out of that Jaguar, and if anybody's going to be able to do it whilst he's under pressure, you wouldn't be betting against the Kiwi.
Got to say with Mitch, he made a mistake last time out in Rome, but before that he's been taken out a couple of times in situations that really were nothing to do with him. He was in a lot of ways the innocent bystander, and that's kind of taken him a bit out of the championship fight. But Mitch again this year has been in contention every week, trading punches with the championship contenders.
So just over a minute to go until the start of this session, Dario. It's a one-shot qualifying system effectively of this one. You only get one bite at the cherry. What kind of pressure does that put on you as a driver?
You can't allow it to, can you? You've got to just focus. At this point, I would be almost in a sort of self-hypnotized, and I'd be just driving that lap in my head. What did I have to do? And again, this is at 350 kilowatts of power, not 300 as we saw in the group stages. They're going to be arriving at the corners so much quicker.
You can see the quarterfinals then. Van Dorn and Evans in the first of them. Then we've got Brené Rast versus Jake Dennis, Dan Tickton versus Sebastian Buemi, and then Pascal Wehrlein versus Nick Cassidy. 4 drivers from the 8 that are in it at the moment will progress forward into the semi-finals. Then we'll only get 2 for the final, and that will decide the front row of the grid. And of course, crucially, who will line up on pole position for the London E-Prix of round 15 here later on this afternoon. So, Mitch Evans versus Stoffel Van Dorn. On the predictor, you think 85% of you are going for Mitch Evans. And to be fair, given the form that Mitch Evans has been on in qualifying so far in 2023, it'd be hard to bet against that. But stranger things have happened, especially with only one opportunity to set a flying lap. One mistake, one lockup can really cost you, and that could be the difference between starting down in 6th place on the grid or possibly trying to aim for the front row later on in the duels. On board here with Mitch Evans as the light goes green, and he exits pit lane then. A predetermined amount of time between himself and Stoffel Van Dorn to give them the most amount of space between one another so they don't trip up over each other on their flying laps here.
And you might think right now he's just driving around, both drivers just getting to the start line of the lap, but they are preparing the tyres, a very set protocol to prepare the tyres, braking, how much lateral energy they put into them. You see Jay Penske, the boss of the DS Penske team, but yeah, you see Mitch now just playing with it. He's got temperatures on his dash telling him are they in the window, and he'll feel it too. You can feel the grip of the tyre coming up, but what you don't want to do is get the tyres in too early, and then by the end of your qualifying lap they start to go off. That can be you think in the first, you get them absolutely in that last sector, and then they fall away when they really count of the last sector of the timed lap.
Well, whatever happens here for Stoffel Van Dorn, this is the first time he's been in the duels, and indeed the best qualifying position he'll achieve since Jakarta for round 11 earlier on this year. It has been a challenging time for the DS Penske team, and the reigning champion has yet to get a podium in 2023. This could be a good opportunity for him to do so as he comes around the final corner and across the timing line to begin his one and only flying lap here in this session. Down in towards the first corner.
Look at the car just diving on the brakes against so much grip on this indoor surface. You see Mitch Evans crossing the start line. A lot less diving on the Jaguar is set up, maybe more. It's got a stiffer front end setup. Look at it change direction. Now we've got the side by side. We've delayed Stoffel Van Dorn's in-car.
So you can see
unfortunately a bit out there, sorry.
Yeah, a little bit, but you can see Evans there in the first sort of mini sector of the lap. He was a 24.8, but Mitch Evans pulls it back then, so 24.679, so 10th of a second to the good here for Mitch Evans so far. Bit of a slide there for Van Dorn coming out of turn 10, coming down in towards.
And on the left, Tom, you can see the live time as they cross those various timelines in the circuit and see the gap. Oh, no, Mitch Evans nearly half a second up the road.
Yeah, he's cleared off with this one, hasn't he? Mitch Evans through in towards the final sector, over the rise. Turn 19 awaits Stoffel Van Dorn unless he can have an absolute worldie and hope that Mitch Evans makes a mistake. I think that it's going to be going the way of the Jaguar TCS Racing driver. Van Dorn comes over the timing line. What's it going to be? A 1:11 flat for him, but Mitch Evans still an absolute flyer and still increasing that advantage. 0.5 of a second to the good. He is over Stoffel Van Dorn, nicely out of turn number 20. No sliding for him over the line. Look at that, 0.6 of a second. He has absolutely annihilated the reigning champion after the first of the duels. It's Mitch Evans who progresses forward, the first of the drivers to go into the semi-finals.
Mighty performance there by Mitch Evans. that's good information for him too now when he gets into the semi-final. It really can help him. He's got all that data bank now in his head.
Yeah, really impressive stuff there for him. Just look at the car riding the bumps here for Mitch Evans. As you said, stiffer front end definitely on that car, less
Certainly
diving under braking.
Yeah, he watched a bit under where he's sitting and look at that gap closing and opening. When that's hitting the ground, that's, that puts a lot of pressure through the driver's spine. It takes the wheels off the ground, which is probably equally, actually more important, I would say.
We move swiftly into quarterfinal 2 between René Rast and Jake Dennis there. 93% of you are going in favour of Jake Dennis, but we know René Rast is not a slow qualifier, and we know that the Nissan powertrain in particular has been working very well around here so far this weekend. Threading the eye of a needle through turn 2, so close to the wall was René Rast through there on his one and only flying lap in the session. We ride on board though with the championship leader Jake Dennis down the start finish straight in towards turn 1. What's it going to look like here for the Briton? Couple of bites of the cherry going into turn 1 there, just set him off a little bit going into turn 2.
Watch again now as the surface changes. It just starts to lose grip. We got the car rotated very well through 4 and 5. René Rast nothing on the table through 10, 11. This is where you've got to be absolutely brave. Maximum risk is right there through turn 13.
So coming now to turn 13 through these ever-decreasing right-handers before the braking zone of turn 16. We've seen a few drivers get it wrong here so far. René Rast is not one of them. In terms of the times, Jake Dennis 0.2 of a second now to the good of René Rast for now. Only 5.4 in terms of the qualifying duels in Dennis's performance this year, so it doesn't necessarily fall in his favour in particular, but René Rast coming through turn number 20 into the timing line. What's it going to be for the German driver in the McLaren? It's a 1:10.893. As we now await to see what Jake Dennis can do. He's increasing the advantage incrementally, about 2.5 tenths as he comes through turn 19, in towards the left-hander of 20, and then it's the timing line for him, looking nice on the front end through there, out of the final corner, across the line, 3.96 tenths of a second, so nearly 4 tenths over René Rast. Jake Dennis progresses forwards into the semi-finals. He will go head-to-head with Mitch Evans.
And the difference between the two, 0.03 of a second in the...
Awesome effort, mate, well done. 4 tenths up on him, make a jump.
Yeah, Mitch Evans, Jake Dennis, again, 0.03 of a second difference going into this semi-final, coming up in a minute. Look at the Andretti car, the bottom of the car hitting the ground and then the wheels coming off as it springs back up over these bumps.
Yeah, nice driving there from Jake Dennis to progress forwards into the semi-finals. Himself versus Mitch Evans, though, that is a very formidable combination. We move straight on, though, to quarter-final 3. Dan Ticktum versus Sebastian Buemi. So, 72% of you reckon that it's going to be Buemi who gets the advantage over Dan Ticktum, but we know Ticktum's not a slouch in that Neo. Given the performance differences, though, between the two cars, you would be hard to bet against the Envision.
Yeah, but no doubt, I mean, Buemi's a qualifying machine, but Ticktum will walk the tightrope here. Absolutely, he will thread the needle. He will get closer to the walls than anybody. He will take more risk because he's got nothing to lose.
Buemi's 3rd consecutive dual appearance, his 10th of the season. Ticktum, meanwhile, has won 2 duels and lost 3. Let's see whether he's going to be able to make that equal of 3 wins and 3 losses there.
Ticktum coming out of turn 9, you can hear him trying to get on the throttle, and he had about 3 different goes at getting onto the throttle.
You see the gap between himself and Sebastian Buemi looking pretty even Stevens through the first sector, but now increasing definitely in favour of Buemi. That front end on that Envision looks really planted, actually.
Yeah, Buemi had a couple of tough years in Formula E, swapped teams to Envision this year, and it's all started to come together again. We've seen those qualifying performances from him, and it's great to see him back and really on form.
Ticktum, though, starting to close the gap here in this second sector of the lap. We look here at the British driver on home soil here in London, through 19, through 20, out of the final corner. Bit of a slide through there for Ticktum. Does he get the power down nicely? Yes, he does. 110.672. But Sebastian Buemi, 0.2 of a second still the advantage he holds over Ticktum into the final couple of corners for the Swiss driver. And is he going to be able to hold that advantage to the timing line? Over it he comes now, a 110.4 for Sebastian Buemi, so he moves forwards into the semi-finals then, and we say goodbye to Dan Ticktum.
Buemi's a massive 0.06 of a second ahead of Jake Dennis. I'm sorry, 900, 600 ahead of Mitch Evans. It's pretty close.
Yeah, it really is. And next up, we've got Pascal Wehrlein versus Nick Cassidy. This is going to be hugely entertaining because these two have gone head-to-head with one another before. We'll come on to that in a couple of moments' time. But let's have a look here, meanwhile, at Sebastian Buemi's car. What do you reckon to that, Dario?
It's pretty smooth there. Maybe he's avoiding the bumps. It looked quite nice. Oh, this is punchy.
We've seen these two go head-to-head with one another before. 88% of you are going in favour of Nick Cassidy. I tell you what, if we get a Cassidy-Dennis showdown for pole position, can you imagine the scenes?
Ultimate pressure.
Well, Pascal Wehrlein then. Cassidy managed to beat him earlier on this season in Cape Town in qualifying, in the quarterfinals, and we'll see what the German driver in the Porsche is going to be able to do. Here is Nick Cassidy as he comes down in towards turn one. Bit of oversteer on the way, on the brakes into there, but nicely
Look
through.
at the flick though from left to right. The Vision car just handled it brilliantly.
Cassidy already ahead in the first mini sector of the lap. Let's have a look and wait for the proper first sector times to come in to give us an accurate representation as Wehrlein threads the Iver Needle through the Custom House chicane, and Cassidy there pulling out even more of an advantage now over Pascal Wehrlein, up to over 2.5 tenths.
He got a massive snap though. Cassidy at very high speed. He was still fighting for traction out of turn 9.
Yep, so Cassidy then, pressure on to the Kiwi, but Wehrlein doesn't really have an answer for him at the moment. Comes over the rise, down the hill, in towards the indoor sector of the lap. This is where the tarmac gets a lot more grippy. Cassidy now with a near half-second advantage over Pascal Wehrlein. Checker flag is out for the German driver. What's it going to be for him? It's a 1:11 flat. Nick Cassidy, though, on an absolute flyer here as he comes over into the indoor part of the track. Nearly half a second was the gap between them. It's come down ever so slightly here, but Cassidy, if he can just keep the same momentum going, and he can, he improves up to a 1:10.613. So not a bad lap time there for Nick Cassidy, but certainly not the quickest we've seen so far.
Yeah, no, that's not good enough though, is it? He's going to have to do a cleaner lap than that if he's going to get into the final and beat Sebastian Buemi in the semi-final.
And we're going to see, yeah.
Watch this. This is out in 9. And it looked to me that he started... Yeah, look at the correction. I think it was actually before that. It looked like he was fighting for traction quite far down the straight.
If anything, you said the car looks a little bit less compliant over the bumps than Buemi's did a couple of moments ago.
Yeah, maybe that's just the line. He looks a bit closer to the wall on the left than Sebastian Buemi.
Yeah, perhaps just exploring a few more of those bumps. So we are going to have an envisioned showdown in the semi-finals. Beautiful city of London, playing host to round 15 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. This is the delight in the Avalanche Andretti garage for Jake Dennis, who got himself ahead of René Rast to progress forwards into the semi-finals. But Dennis versus Evans, a formidable combo. And the thing is as well, of course, you've got fewer opportunities now to progress forwards. You would imagine, if you're Envision, you're surely going to put a bit of team tactics coming in here.
The eyes.
Yeah, that's focus, isn't it?
You normally see Jake Dennis all sort of happy and messing around. Absolute focus there.
Yeah, Jake Dennis, a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Likewise for Nick Cassidy.
You can see, I think the engineer was just talking on his, you've got speakers inside your ear pods, basically, molded to your ears, and you can see the way his head moved. The engineer was having a chat with him.
Great to see the crowd in here as well. 40,000 capacity. You can see then, so it's Evans and Dennis in the first of the semi-finals. Then we've got an envisioned showdown between Cassidy and Buemi. You wonder whether team tactics are going to come into play there so that Buemi can play the rear gunner role to Nick Cassidy and allow him to go in that fight for pole position. It's all on the way here in just a couple of moments' time, and we see who is going to emerge on top. Well, the drivers then gearing themselves up ahead of the semi-finals. Let's head down to Nicky before we get them underway.
Oh, we couldn't have asked for more. We couldn't have written it better. 3 of our championship contenders into the semis. Fantastic. So, Chris Hoy, you know what it's like to put in the perfect lap, not just once, but you've got to do it again and again and again through the quarters, the semis, the finals. Just explain to us the kind of the mental approach that you have to come with to be able to achieve it.
I think it's about not looking too far ahead, about being in the moment, about focusing on what you can do right here, right now, and not being distracted by all the variables around you, what your rivals are doing, all the things that you have no control over. So yeah, it's focusing on the here and the now and what you can do.
That sounds great, and so once you're told that that's what you have to do, fantastic. But how do you actually do it, put it in practice? Did you have any strategies?
Yeah, I guess it's visualization of the perfect lap, visualization of every single part of it, while you're visualizing, you're pushing out any negative or anxious thoughts. So it works doubly effectively because you're not allowing these doubts to creep into your mind. But you have to keep refocusing. So it's not like you're focused the whole time. You have to keep readjusting. Things will distract you, but it's about switching back in, and that's the tricky part.
I think that's why I love this qualifying format so much, that they have to do it not just once, but again and again. Karun, we've got a fantastic semi-final lineup now. We've got, well, the two Envisions going against each other. Do you think, surely team orders are going to play out here,
well,
and Grammy's got to let Nick Cassidy go for it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're the team principal there, to me, it's a no-brainer. You've just got to tell Boemi to, crawl around, do a slow lap, and make sure Cassidy gets through 100%, because they want to have Cassidy on the front row to have any chance of fighting Jake Dennis.
And what about when it comes to Mitch Evans, Jake Dennis? I mean, Jake, obviously, he's just done so well in qualifying in the past. I think he's been in 9 finals before in the duels. So really, is it his to lose?
Well, I think, first of all, I think Jake will breathe a huge sigh of relief that he's got this far. We've seen so many incidents on the opening lap of the race here because it's quite narrow. And I think if you put yourself in the first 2 rows of the grid, which Jake has now guaranteed himself, you're at least in a safe zone. You talk about it, the Kieran race, right? About the positioning, you want to make sure you're clear. And I think that's the situation Jake's in. So he'll already be relieved, but I think anything beyond this is a bonus. If he gets pole, that's a great extra 3 points.
I'm going to put you on the spot. So, Chris, who's going to be on pole position in London?
It's got to be Jake Dennis. It's all about Jake. Come on.
Yeah, come on, the Brits. Not that we're biased at all. Brilliant. Well, soon we will find out. Of course, 3 valuable points up for grabs. But now it is time for the semi-finals to get underway here under the roof of the Excel Centre in London. Will it be Jake Dennis on pole?
Dan Ticktum, in terms of the track here, a lot of the drivers have spoken about how physical it is. You're possibly the strongest driver on the grid. So how do you feel?
Yes, it is. You don't get a lot of time to rest, that's for sure. And the indoor section is probably the highest grip, or one of the highest grip surfaces that we have all season. And the steering weight is heavy. And I remember from last year, even in Gen 2, as the weekend progresses and more rubber goes down, it gets heavier and heavier. I remember last year literally having to put my hand on top of the steering wheel because it got so heavy. So I think it'll be similar this year. I think tyre grip is slightly less, so hopefully it won't be that bad, but it's already pretty physical.
On social media, everybody's asking one question. Will Dan Ticktum take his top off once again just to round out the London E-Prix?
I mean, in here there's no breeze, so it's not very warm. But without the breeze, I mean, I'm sweating a lot. So
what you're saying is possibly.
Yeah, I would say there's a high chance, mate.
We're looking forward to seeing it, mate, race well today.
Thank you. Spot on.
We've got to talk about Dan Ticktum. He's done such an impressive job this season, bringing home a proper points haul for Neo 333, who have been the underdogs, really, haven't they? And he seems like in a very can-do attitude.
And I think he's got a good chance here because their biggest issue, I don't know how much of the season you've seen, but they've been very quick in qualifying. Dan in particular, a great qualifier, but they struggle in the races and they've gone back. Here, it's a narrow track. He's got plenty of opportunity to defend. He might run out of energy towards the end of the race, and then we'll get some amazing radio afterwards, I'm sure. But I think he's got a good chance of some points here this weekend. He's a great character, Dan Ticktum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You never really had team radio as a cyclist, but of course, in your racing career, you have. Do you ever get quite colourful on the language there?
Well, yeah, when you're away from the TV cameras, usually it's the debrief after, so you might race 12, 13, 14 times in a day, on and off the track, and it's the debrief while you're cooling down in between races. That's when it can get a bit heated, but you try to stay calm. As our psychologist used to say, keep the chimp in the cage, try and not be emotional. And try and focus on the logical
psychology.
side.
But can I ask you about psychology, actually? Because head-to-head racing, you've done so much of that, and that's what the duels are about. How much did you know about your rival? How much were you looking at that one person, their strengths, their weakness as an individual?
You would spend hundreds of hours over the season analysing videos. I used to take videos home and sit and watch race after race after race, so you knew that statistically if your rival was leading with a lap and a half to go, then 80% chance of them winning. You knew their strengths, you knew their weaknesses, but you did it all before you came to race weekend, so you wouldn't sit and focus on race weekend on your rivals. You focus on yourself, and you try and be proactive, so you try and always play to your strengths and make them react to your tactics and your moves, but yeah, always try and put yourself in the hot seat.
Brilliant. It's all such fascinating stuff. The psyche of a champion. But now it is time for the semi-finals to get underway. Let's go down to commentary.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Nikki. Welcome along then to the semi-finals. This is going to be hugely exciting. The quarterfinals eliminated Van Dorn, Ras, Ticktum and Verline. So in the semis, we've got Jake Dennis versus Mitch Evans, and then the two envisions of Nick Cassidy versus Sebastian Buemi. You surely think that there's going to be a bit of team tactics coming into play to give Cassidy the best opportunity in the fight for pole position. But stranger things have happened. Let's see how this one is going to work out. In terms of the stats coming into this one, Jake Dennis has never lost a semi-final appearance in 2023, and 68% of you on the predictor reckon that he is going to be the driver that progresses forwards into the fight for pole position. Mitch Evans there with 32% of the margin. What do you reckon, Dario Franchitti?
I was going to say too close to call, but that's a total cop-out, isn't it? I mean, you've got to say Jake Dennis's form at this circuit has been pretty exceptional past couple of years. So by a very tiny margin, I'm going to say I think Jake Dennis is probably got the slight advantage here, but yeah, it is so close. I mean, look at the times, look at the difference in lap time we're talking about.
Well, full power mode for the drivers, of course, in the duels. In the group stages, we've got 300 kilowatts of power available to them, up to 350 now. That was the case for the quarterfinals, and it's the case for the semis, and it will be the case for the finals as the drivers emerge onto track. Slightly nervous bit of anticipation here for James Barkley as well, with Mitch Evans. Could we see him upsetting the apple cart? The sunshine's now out here this afternoon, which is nice to see as well.
One thing to think about is when you see James Barkley there, 3 Jaguar powertrains.
That's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely, because of course the Envisions have got Jags at the back of...
and we've got a Porsche powertrain in the back of this Andretti car of Jake Dennis. So heck of a job by the Jaguar powertrain team, with really both the factory team and of course the Envision customer team.
Yeah, we're expecting them to be strong here this weekend, but 3 powertrains through into the semi-finals is a very welcome result.
All right, this is the lap starts right there. I know the timeline's a bit later, but you've got to get off that last corner to get the maximum speed down the straight and into braking into turn 1.
Nice line through there for Jake Dennis as Verline winds himself up for the beginning of his flying lap. You can see that the team principals, Roger Griffiths on the left, James Barkley on the right. Dennis looking pretty good through this first sector. What about Mitch Evans as we split screen it through in towards the first and second corners? Nicely done through there, kind of even Stevens really at the moment.
Mitch looks very good. They're close in time, but also just looking at the way the cars are handling, it looks pretty close. It's going to take the slightest mistake here from either one of these guys is going to decide this semi-final, I think.
Yeah, it's going to get closer and closer here, isn't it? Nicely.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Dennis has dropped a bit of time here and a bit of oversteer on the exit of the run of the 13. Could this be the undoing for Dennis? He's now dropping down even further from Mitch Evans as he goes through turn 16. So he's going to have to hope for a mistake here from Evans or to have an absolute worldie of a final sector. Pressure's on here for the championship leader.
Yeah, and he's catching a little bit, but as you said, now he's going to take more risk than he would have done before. And I tell you what, Mitch Evans is nearly 4/10 up the road.
Well, this is certainly not in the scripts for Jake Dennis. He comes around the final corner to the timing line. It's a 1:11.8, no, 1:10.8, nowhere near the quickest time that we've seen so far in the duels as Mitch Evans comes through 19 and 20. Will he be knocking out Jake Dennis as he comes around the final corner and across the timing line? It's Mitch Evans in the Jaguar, and he does by 0.2 of a second. So Mitch Evans eliminates Jake Dennis from the duels.
That's right there with the quickest time we've seen in the duels so far. Yeah, big job from Mitch Evans, but Jake Dennis is still on the second row of the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. So all is not lost here for Jake Dennis. He needed a strong qualifying and to not get mired in the pack. Making it through into the duels was the first port of call, but now into the semi-finals is as far as he will progress forwards, with now Mitch Evans going forwards in the battle for pole position. Just looking at the car here for Mitch Evans, you must wonder whether Dennis made a mistake, that perhaps I was looking at the other side of the screen at Mitch Evans at the time or something, but dropped an awful lot of time in that second sector, didn't he? So now we've got the two Envision cars of Nick Cassidy and Sebastian Buemi. 89% of you think that Cassidy is going to progress forwards, and as I said earlier on, you would imagine that team tactics are going to come into play here, that Buemi will have been told to back off at some particular point to let Cassidy go through in that fight for pole position.
You cannot. If the team do that, I think they're absolutely within the right to do it. It's what the smart it's the smart play, isn't it? And then they'll go fight this afternoon. But Sebastian Buemi, right now, his job is to help keep his teammate Nick Cassidy in championship contention and win the team's championship for Envision.
Well, believe it or not, it's actually only the first time we've seen both Envisions in the semi-finals in the same race in 2023. Buemi about 600ths of a second up over Nick Cassidy at the moment. As they come through in towards turn 16, Buemi's car looking pretty good through there as it stands. Sorry, Cassidy's car, I should say, looking pretty good through there for now.
Oh, Buemi's gone off, and I wonder if that was maybe the
team tactic that's coming into play there, perhaps, or whether maybe it was a genuine mistake there for Sebastian Buemi. Either way, it's handed the gauntlet here on a platter to Nick Cassidy. Comes around turn number 20, goes to the timing line. He's going to easily finish ahead of Sebastian Buemi.
Yeah, Buemi's making sure here that he's being not very subtle about it, as he should. That's the team game, and if I was Sylvain Philippe, that's the game I would play right now. Absolutely right.
He's probably getting around this circuit faster than I'd be able to get one of these Formula E cars around here. Sebastian Buemi then around turn 20. So it will be Nick Cassidy that progresses forwards from the semi-finals into the finals then. So we're going to have Mitch Evans versus Nick Cassidy, an all-Kiwi fight for pole position. Jaguars in the back of both machines for the powertrains. Envision versus the factory Jaguar team. Let's have another look and see what happened here for Buemi. Not the rears going in towards turn 10. Maybe
I don't know.
I don't know if it was an on-purpose mistake there.
No, might be right. Maybe he was going to prove, he was going to show that he was the quickest guy and then back off to let his teammate win the duel. I don't know.
Well, either way, he was certainly pushing the limits of adhesion there, Sebastian Buemi. But it is Nick Cassidy then that progresses forwards in the fight for pole.
And you know what, Tom? I've been in the receiving end of a teammate helping. I've also had to help teammates out, and it's if you've got a good relationship with your teammate, you know that it's going to be reciprocated. But from what we're hearing, this might be Nick Cassidy's last weekend in the Envision team.
Yeah, it certainly is a possibility. Lots of rumours floating around the paddock as silly season, certainly in full swing. So then, it is going to be Mitch Evans versus Nick Cassidy in the fight for pole position in the finals for round 15 of the Hankook London E-Prix in the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. Who is going to claim top honours? Dramatic fashion, though, we say goodbye to Jake Dennis. He was out-qualified by Mitch Evans in the duels. The British driver giving himself a little bit more work to do come race time here this afternoon. Body language not looking too bad there. He's not looking too disgruntled or angry or anything like that. Seems like he's just sort of taking it on the chin, slightly shake of the head. But either way, it is what it is. Now move all the focus forwards for the race. Well, the final fight for pole position is going to be along the way in just a couple of moments' time. Let's head down to Nicky and the team, though, before we get it underway.
Well, Jake Dennis there, obviously not getting through to the final. Did everything he could. Just a bit slow in that first sector. 4/10 down and then couldn't recover it in the rest of the lap.
Yeah, that's right. But I think he won't be too disappointed. You know, as I was saying before, he's in a safe zone. Every winner here at the XL has come from the top 3 on the grid. He's hovering around there, and he doesn't need to win it. He just needs to stay safe and score 6 points. That's all he wants to get here. Yeah,
that is the magic number, isn't it? That he has to be 6 points ahead of Nick Cassidy to tie the championship up today. Razzy's actually with him now. Let's hear what he has to say.
Jake, it turns out you are human. A slight error there. There's an awful lot of pressure on your shoulders there. How do you assess that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to be so far up the front of the field. After practice, we were struggling a little bit with pace against the Jaguars, and yeah, it was sort of anticipated going into quali that once we sort of went up against Mitch, and if we made it to the final, Nick, it would have been extremely difficult to beat them, and yeah, it's proved that it's the case. So yeah, I mean, one Porsche against 3 Jags in the race is going to be extremely difficult, but I mean, I hope Mitch can take it to Nick and take away those 3 points, but you know, they're all working together, so maybe it won't happen. But I mean, yeah, happy to be going off the front row due to Mitch's penalty.
touching on what you just said there, the difficulties and challenges you're going to face, how do you expect this race to go? Is it elbows out? Are you thinking about the win? Are you thinking about guaranteed points? We'd love to know.
I mean, yeah, it's bad if Nick wins, to be honest, because it takes away so many points. So I could really do with trying to win the race. It will be difficult. Passing is challenging, and obviously we're at a slight deficit in terms of just pure pace. So we'll just try and do the best we can, try and hold position, and if we can fight Nick, then great.
We can't wait to watch, mate. Race well.
Appreciate it.
That's a really interesting point that Jake Dennis has just raised there. Mitch Evans has a grid penalty that we haven't talked about. Oliver, talk us through why he's got the grid penalty and, of course, the implications for this.
Yeah, so that's a grid penalty from Rome in the final race there on Sunday, where he had the incident with Nick Cassidy going into turn 7 on the brakes when he took the 2 cars out. So, of course, Nick Cassidy is now definitely going to be on pole here this afternoon. I think it's quite interesting to hear Jake. He's obviously done his homework. He knows exactly, you know, where he needs to finish based on those other 2 championship contenders. So it's interesting.
Excellent. Well, it's going to be a very exciting start of the race, that is for sure. But let's go down now to Radzi, who's with Pascal Wehrlein.
Joined by Pascal Wehrlein. Pascal, it's another duels for you, out in the quarterfinals. How do you assess this season and where you are right now? Where's your head at?
Yeah, I think it's one of the better qualifyings for us, even though, yeah, P7 is an okay position, I would say. But we just struggle a little bit more with one-lap pace, and especially when you need to bring up the tires quickly up to temperature. And yeah, then the gap just gets bigger. Whilst in free practice sessions, for example, this morning I was P4 and yeah, also leading quite for a long time. So yeah, we didn't find the silver bullet yet, but we're working hard to find it.
You could have that silver bullet in the team championships, though, because it is a real battle for yourselves. How important are points at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, it's deciding 2 races, and our competitors, they are all at the front as well. So yeah, we need to have a clean race. I'm sure our pace in the race will be good, as it has always been. Yeah, we just struggle a bit in qualifying.
Thanks for your time, mate.
Thank you.
So, reminder there, 3 points up for grabs for pole position. Absolutely critical in the championship title at the moment. Jake Dennis did everything he could in this qualifying session, not through to the final, but is still going to be at the top of the grid. What is his approach now going into the race? He knows he's not in the mid-pack, he's away from the melee, the carnage. What's he got to do to tie it up today?
Well, I think, first of all, to go back to the 3 points, because at the moment he's got a 24-point lead. Envision used the same powertrain as Jaguar, and that's what Jake's comment earlier, that they're working together. So really in this final, if they play that whole Jaguar Empire game, if you like, we think that Cassidy will get another 3 points, so that gap will be down to 21. And then Jake has just got to drive his own race. He's got to, if he starts opening the door a little bit more than he would have done on any other weekend, the other drivers, they don't care. They don't care about being cautious around him. They're in it for themselves, as they should be. They're fighting for their careers. This is contract season for next year. They want to get the best result, and they will just barge him out of the way. So he's got to be careful not to do anything too differently to what he's done this season, because actually what he's done this season has worked well, and he's got 9 podiums.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the consistency that we've seen from Jake Dennis is absolutely phenomenal. It's unmatched. But then Nick Cassidy still continues to bring performance.
Yes, Nick's always knocking on the door, especially in this final half of the season, and he hasn't been the best qualifier up until this point today. So, yeah, we can expect him to be very strong, and that Jaguar powertrain we know has very, very good traction here at this London circuit.
Yeah, Nick Cassidy has definitely pulled out the qualifying performance exactly when he needed it. An absolutely critical moment for him. But let's go down and find out what's going to happen in the final. Here, over to commentary.
Yeah, thanks very much indeed, Nicky and the team. So, Nick Cassidy versus Mitch Evans in the fight for pole position. But let's not forget, of course, Mitch Evans has a 5-place grid penalty for what happened in Rome a couple of weeks ago when he clattered into the back of Nick Cassidy. Not necessarily his fault, he just locked up under the brakes, went over the back of him, didn't intend to do it, but, you know, that's what happened. He ended up, of course, eliminating them both out of the race, was slapped with a 5-place penalty, and you can see here that now they go head-to-head in the fight for pole position, but it is going to be Mitch Evans, the driver who will effectively be starting on pole.
Yeah, he would. He'd still get the 3 points.
Which is true.
He would
That is a
still.
good
Mitch
point.
Evans would still get the 3 points. So maybe they're going to. Who knows if they will say? Would Karun call it the Jaguar Empire? I'm not sure how that one's going to play out. But those 3 points again will be absolutely critical.
Yeah.
I've won championships, I think, by less than that. So yeah, this is go time.
Yep, 24 points, the advantage that Jake Dennis has in the championship over Nick Cassidy. So if Cassidy can get the better of Mitch Evans, as you said, 3 points, it will reduce by, so down to 21 ahead of the race here this afternoon, which will be very, very important for Nick Cassidy to keep his championship hopes alive. The both drivers emerge out onto the track for the final time in the fight for pole position. And this is going to be hugely exciting as James Barkley, with his poker face, watches on. Sylvain Philippe on the left of your picture. And here is Sebastian Buemi. He's actually managed to set the fastest time overall in terms of every driver in the duel so far. That was a 110.404, just to make you aware, in case you were keeping a close eye on things. And let's see whether his teammate, Nick Cassidy, is going to try and better that. The track will be improving. Actually, turns out to be quite a nice day this afternoon.
It's getting hotter, though. I'm thinking here, typical racing driver thinking about the negatives. It's, the sun's coming out. The track surface is going to heat up, lose grip. So we might see a slightly less grip in this session. It will definitely be hotter for the race coming up later this afternoon. So we see Cassidy start his lap now. Hasn't been too drama-filled so far.
Yep, down in towards the first big braking, so a bit of a dive going in towards turn 1 on the front end. Slightly wide maybe on the apex of the first corner, but gathers it up quite nicely in towards the second part of it. We'll get an idea of what Mitch Evans is going to be able to do as he comes across the line to start his one and only flying lap, as Cassidy emerges into the daylight, then back indoors as he comes through to the middle sector of the lap. The car looking pretty calm and comfortable so far. Mitch Evans matching the pace of his countrymen.
Got to say, these Generation 3 cars, they were cracking. It was so much quicker around this London track, and that was a big bite going into turn 10 from Nick Cassidy. Oh, and he's rubbed the wall. He's leaving nothing on the table.
Yeah, Nick Cassidy then really pushing the edge of adhesion as he comes down in towards 16, then locking the rear slightly there. Is that going to send him a little bit wide? Think it might have done. Might cost him half a tenth of a second or two. Evans is not far adrift of it as he comes through in towards the final sector of the lap. Does Nick Cassidy over the rise, up in towards 19 and 20. Let's see whether Evans is going to claw it back. No, it's still going in favour of Nick Cassidy for now as he comes around the final corner to the timing line. What's it going to be for Cassidy? It's a 110.604. All the pressure's on Evans, but it's swung back in Evans' favour then. So those mistakes that Cassidy pulled through in those final couple of corners are really going to be potentially set to cost Cassidy here, because, of course, it's 3 points in the championship. Here comes Evans to the line. It's a 110.5. Evans takes pole position. He'll drop 5 places due to the penalty that he suffered in Rome a couple of weeks ago, but crucially, he gets those 3 points.
Yes, 0.02, that's pole position, yes, well done.
200ths of a second. Fantastic stuff.
Amazing between those two drivers, really at their very best here this afternoon. And it is Mitch Evans who qualifies on pole by, as Dario said, just 26 100ths of a second. Penny for the thoughts of Jake Dennis as he walks back through pit lane.
That could have been worse. I bet that's what he's thinking right now.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It keeps his advantage at 24 points going into the race this afternoon. It could have been reduced down to 21 had Cassidy taken pole, but those couple of little errors that we saw from him on the course of that lap just cost him so dearly, and have cost him 3 points in the fight for pole position. He's really going to have to pull the cat out of the bag, despite the fact, of course, that he will start from pole position owing to the penalty for this man. So down in towards the braking zone, you can see the Jaguar there looking pretty compliant and comfortable. I'll have another look at the mistakes for Nick Cassidy a couple of moments ago. I'm sure we'll see that in a few moments' time.
Tom, correct my maths, if you would. Not very good, but as I see it right now, Nick Cassidy starting on pole because of the Mitch Evans penalty, and Jake Dennis starting second.
I think you could possibly be
all championship.
I think you're right, yeah. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. Yeah, just looking at the times.
Oh, that's going to be tasty into turn 1 and through 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting. Well, that's going to be shaping up for an interesting one. But of course, Dennis is going to be on the dirtier side of the grid.
Yeah, but with the this inside
Good point.
surface,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Good point, actually.
This is the ultimate place for traction, which is why they were doing 0 to 60 records and stuff. So Jake Dennis in.
So,
catching his team.
Well, you can see the championship gap sits at the same. Still 24 points to the advantage of Jake Dennis. He will then start from the front row of the grid by our calculations up here in the commentary box. Mitch Evans qualifies on pole, but will drop 5 places for that penalty. And, well, he's still in mathematically with a chance of the championship. Stranger things have happened. We know that Formula E likes to throw up a bit of drama, especially when it comes down to title battles. If you remember back in London in season 2,
yeah,
Alain Sebastian Buemi and Lucas de Grassi.
Absolutely. Watch this. Now watch as he.
Oh, he hit the
bit
curb,
wide,
didn't he?
Yeah. Now watch him on the exit here. Here we go. Slow-mo, catching the oversteer. Oh, that's close.
So tight there for Nick Cassidy. Then it was coming in towards 16. I think he just locked the rears coming to there. Look at this. I
think he hit it.
I think you're right. I think he did your tip, though, of doing it square on.
Yeah, see, you might have been listening.
Do you reckon he's got Frank Keating's commentary in
God,
the...
I hope not.
In the crash out?
41 points now, Mitch Evans behind.
Can you imagine Dennis? Oh, Jake had Christmas and New Year's in July.
Christmas in July.
I wonder if he's talking about the team, the lack of team orders, but, you know, Mitch Evans is still in mathematical contention.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. So, as Nick Cassidy emerges from the car, let's go over to the man who qualified on pole position, Mitch Evans in the Jaguar TCS racing machine.
Mitch Evans, 3 crucial points in that qualifying. You could hear on the radio what it meant to you and to the team. Can you talk us through that one?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been tight between you know, a bunch of us actually all day, and even in qualifying. So I knew I had to do a good lap. The lap was actually not incredible compared to my other dual laps, but it was obviously enough. Yeah, just massive thanks to the team. Obviously, this is obviously a nice step forward. But in terms of you know, towards our championship and towards the team's championship, 3 points right now is you know, like any point is like gold right now. So happy for that. It was obviously tough against Nick. Obviously Jake is still very close, so I think we're in for a pretty big race.
Then there's a strange situation. Usually you'd be starting on pole because you're the pole sitter, but ultimately the grid penalty means you're not. So where's your head at with that, and does that change race strategy?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I knew that obviously coming to the weekend, so it is what it is. I did all I really could to try and obviously minimize the damage. It doesn't help because especially the races here are quite fast. They're quite relatively flat out, so not as much energy saving as I would probably like. But look, the car's obviously quick. I'm obviously feeling good around here, so we'll try and optimize what we have and move forward.
It's going to be a dramatic race. We cannot wait to see it. But more importantly, massive congratulations for earning 3 points for Jaguar at a crucial part in the season in the penultimate race of the Formula E season. And to hand the Julius Baer Pole Decision Trophy, we have Olivier Berger, the head of branding and campaigning at Bank Julius Baer.
Well then, Mitch Evans takes pole position. He will start the race from 6th on the grid. And it does mean that the front row will be Nick Cassidy and Jake Dennis in that order. And that's the 2nd consecutive race that they will have started from the front row, albeit, of course, it was in reverse order last time out for round 14 at Rome. Anyway, let's head down then to Parc Fermé and catch up with Nick Cassidy, who starts on pole.
Nick Cassidy, at this point in the season, obviously every single point matters. You're front row on the grid, actually in pole position, but didn't get the 3 points. So how do you judge that one?
Well, yeah, sounds like you're trying to put words in my mouth.
Well, just in the sense that obviously you'd love points, but at the same time you're in pole position, so it sort of swings and roundabouts. It's sort of bittersweet, I imagine.
Summed it up well.
And can you explain where you are emotionally in terms of where your head's at?
We're on pole position for the race, so try to win the race.
Race well today then, mate.
Thanks.
Well, Nick Cassidy, a man of few words and very few words given in that interview. I think a bit of frustration there for him. And I'm sure that he'll be now trying to refocus and move forwards into the race that takes place later on here this afternoon for round 15 of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. Here's a look at the starting grid, though. It's Roberto Merri at the back with Robin Freins alongside him. Next up, it's then Lucas de Grassi with Sergio Sette Camara in the Neo 333 racing machine. Jake Hughes, Antonio Felix da Costa next up on the grid. Further up the order, you can see Max Günther and Jean-Eric Verne in 14th and 13th place in the Maserati and the DS Penske. Nico Müller, Edo Mortara in 12th and 11th place respectively. And then just inside the top 10, Norman Nato in the Nissan. Alongside him will be the Jaguar TCS of Sam Bird. Contrasting fortunes for those two drivers, with Stoffel Vandoorne in 8th ahead of, just behind rather, Pascal Wehrlein in the Tag Heuer Porsche. Mitch Evans qualified on pole position, but a 5-place grid penalty demotes him down to 6th place. He lines up with René Rast for company just in front. Dan Ticktum, second row start in the Neo 333 machine, with Sebastian Buemi playing rear gunner to Nick Cassidy, who will line up on pole position with Jake Dennis, the two championship protagonists lining up alongside one another for round 15. This is going to be hugely exciting to see what happens.
I'm joined at the pad here by Nick Cassidy. You're going to be starting on pole position this afternoon. Didn't get the points, but let's have a look at the final. This is you versus Mitch Evans. It's a tricky track here, Nick. First, talk to me about Sector 1.
Yeah, you see, I don't really have the front that I like at the first sector. You can see I actually turned in okay, and I washed wide here. Mitch is on the apex.
Yeah.
I think we missed with tires in this quali. I had a set that didn't perform, and this set then was off the car, and it was probably a bit cold for this duel, which I think was quite costly.
So actually, you know, so the first part of the lap, it's very high grip, isn't it? For people at home to understand, we're in this building, it's a special surface, it's the grippiest of the season, but you're still struggling with front tire temp on the...
Yeah, and I think you know the feeling, right? When you get a high grip surface, normally you want more front, because you can live with it. And that probably was a bit costly, but considering the tire temperature that I had, I was fairly happy with the first sector. It was kind of clean.
Well, you're actually ahead. So if I use these little marker boards as a reference there, you could say you're on the final one. And so you're a few car lengths ahead of Mitch. So actually in the first 4 corners, you're doing all right. Now this bump, it looks pretty nasty when you get to the bottom of the compression. What's it like in the car?
Yeah, exactly that, mate. It is nasty. It's high risk. You want to be as close as you can there. You want to be as close as you can here. We're quite similar, I imagine.
Yeah.
Here I was struggling with, I was actually very happy I could get straight. In the previous duels I left black lines, and I was quite happy with how it was here as well. I could clip, I think
you used a lot of this curb here, I noticed there.
Yeah, and it didn't upset the exit. So actually where I was on Delta at this point, I don't know if I was up or down to Mitch, but I was pretty happy with the lap until here, and then it all went wrong.
Yeah, well, tell me what happens here at this point. So
probably that. We've just seen it. I've just under-rotated the front.
We'll just take a pause here for a moment. We got some viewers. So everyone who's just rejoined us off the break here, we're watching with Nick Cassidy. So you've told me until this point, we'll go back a little bit, it was all going well, and now it started to go wrong. So let's start with turn 16. What happens here?
Well, I think you just saw, I just had a very moment,
the front right.
very, very small lock, and it's just pushed me online. Because of the track conditions this morning, with it being wet here, the difference online and off was maybe a bit more extreme.
Right.
So probably quite costly to do that.
And you could see the difference there, can't you? Because your rival in that final, Mitch Evans, on that inside curb, and you're way wider.
Yeah.
And because I guess it's a combination of corners, it compromised your line coming out of it into the next bit.
Yeah, and just the distance lost, right? So look, I think the rest of the lap, I don't know.
Yeah, like up to the chicane, you were in front, and now you can see you're nip and tuck. If we look at this little marker there, you're slightly behind, but there's nothing in it. Let's go through it, because actually I want you to see this. Evans, watch his front right here. He just there.
Oh, he clipped it. Yeah, okay.
Clipped the inside wall.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the last two, because it does seem a lot of people we've seen here struggling to get the inside front there.
Yeah, and you see me again with the amount, if you go back, just the amount of lock I've used and gone wide.
Wow, I mean,
it's just...
Let's show people at home with a magnifier. Your steering wheel is more than 180 degrees.
Exactly, so we've just really missed on tyres with this run. I think that I actually feel even better watching this, seeing the difference in the front grip, and then seeing the difference in lap time.
Well, you're welcome to come back anytime you want.
Thanks, man. It makes me feel better. But yeah, with the exception of 16, I think for what I had, it was a pretty good lap.
Yeah, I mean, look, you were very quick in the group stages, quick early on the semi. You're starting on pole. That's all the good news.
Yeah.
For you, is it a straightforward race? You've just got to go there and win it? You know, you're not playing the numbers like Jake needs to?
Yeah. Just try to win. I think that was the idea, to try to get a pole, try to get a win, but it does hurt having that margin to 3 points. I think, you know, Rome was on me, and today I think we can almost say 16 was on me, but I think ultimately we just didn't have the tyres in the window.
Okay, all right, good luck for the race, man.
Thanks, man.
Cheers.
And then traction's obviously our weak point, but just when you watch Nick's lap, it's just crazy how much grip they have on exit. Like the amount they turn is quite a lot. I actually think they turn more than I do.
So that was Jake Dennis saying how much grip Nick Cassidy has got. You could see his slight kind of shift in demeanour there, slight head in hands, looking a little bit worried. I don't know, what's his approach going to be, Chris, coming into this fight? I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better start, the two championship contenders against each other in the front row, but there's obviously a lot on his mind.
I think, well, he's feeling the pressure. Most of the pressure is coming from himself. You expect it to be from the home crowd, from the home media, but actually, as an athlete, you want to perform on the biggest stage in front of a home audience and win the ultimate, you know, to become a world champion. And he's feeling that pressure. He's on the front row, which is where he needs to be, but obviously you can see that he didn't quite have the pace that Evans and Cassidy had. But do you know what? He's exactly where he needs to be.
Absolutely. I mean, Dario, how can Jake get the pace to match Nick Cassidy? What can he do?
Well, right now they're in there working on it, and that's typical racing driver, typical athlete thing. They're in there focusing on the negatives. They're not saying, oh, did you see how good I was in turn 4? They're saying, this is wrong, that's wrong, look at where he is, we need to be better. And they'll be pushing from now until the lights go out, until we go green in a couple hours' time, to absolutely maximise everything they've got in that Porsche powertrain and that Andretti car.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, both of you have had a lot of experience actually getting to that moment, winning those final championship titles. What does it actually mean to win a championship title? Just describe to us those feelings and you know, how much is at stake at the moment for these two guys?
Well, these are the moments that your career is defined by. And I won my first world title by 1,000th of a second. I remember the feeling, well, that was London 2012. Yeah, it's, you know, you forget all the down moments, the times where it didn't go well, the times when you were knocked off your bike or injured, or you were having, you know, you weren't having success. It's all about those moments. So they're well aware of what is on the line this weekend. This is a defining moment in their career. So for Jake, he's trying not to think about winning. He's trying not to think about the title. He's trying not to think about what would happen if he didn't win. He's just trying to focus on the detail, as Dario just saying, you know, focus on what can I do to be the best I can be and to string together the perfect race.
Yeah, and ultimately, no one remembers the runner-up, or no one remembers when, oh, it was a bit of bad luck or it was someone else's fault and that's why I lost points. All they remember is who won the championship.
Well, absolutely right. And they're under tremendous pressure, but this pressure, they should try and embrace it, because they might never get this chance again. And you've now got to perform. They've absolutely got to perform at their highest level. The kind of the sad thing is that at this moment they're not going to be thinking about what they're potentially achieving. They're just going to be so focused on trying to achieve it. And when they get old like us, then they can look back and think, how mega was that? But right now it's all about the boring, hard work to then try and absolutely excel this afternoon.
And the fact that obviously Jake hasn't won a world championship since his karting days. It was 13 years ago, whereas Nick Cassidy has had a bit of experience being at the top of his game. He's won, you know, a number of championships from Super GT, Super League. How much advantage will that play into his hands? Or actually, this is a new championship, it's Formula E, it makes no difference?
They've both got here in merit, haven't they? And I think I think Nick Cassidy's CV speaks for itself, absolutely. But Jake Dennis has got here through grit and hard work as well. And I'm not sure I can see an advantage one way or the other.
Did it feel easier winning your 6th gold medal, or was it harder every time?
Well, every challenge is different, every time is different, but I think once you've proven it to yourself, once you know that you can step up under the greatest of pressure and deliver, that's what defines an athlete, it defines a champion, is being able to do it when it counts. It's not just doing, winning when there's no pressure or random races here and there. It's about doing it right here, right now, the two biggest names on the grid, and you know who is going to be victorious? That is the question that we're all asking.
Is a very good question, and it's all far too exciting. I'm not sure I'm ready for excitement today. It's supposed to be a calm day in the office. Let's go down to Saunders, who's catching up with, well, team principal, whose nerves are probably running quite high right now.
Yes, indeed. I'm here with James Barclay. Now, it seems to me that there was no alternative, that Mitch Evans had to get that pole position for the 3 points. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we're fighting for this team's championship, and he still has a mathematical chance. Anything can happen today. So, yeah, you've got to be careful. We just got to do our job really simply, and that's just to go and be as fast as we can this weekend. That's the position we're in. Maximise our points and see where we are. So, no, really pleased for him. He's had the best average qualifying performance of everyone this season. He showed yet again, you know, when the pressure's on, he's absolutely a superstar.
It feels slightly like deja vu also, because we've been in this position with Mitch Evans beforehand when it comes to the final weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Words can't say enough. We're so proud of the team, but also Mitch. You know, 3 years in a row being in a position where he's fighting for the Drivers' Championship. I think that stand out in the field, to be really honest with you. And yeah, yet again, he's doing it this weekend, and we never give up until that last lap. So yeah, really proud of the team and of Mitch.
So we've got to ask the question now, from that starting position, P5, how much can be done in the race? Is this circuit going to allow for the overtakes needed?
Yeah, I think generally speaking, that sort of top 6 position is a good place to be. Of course, in London, it's very tight. Front row is a real preference. We've seen a lot of contact in turn 1, turn 2. So the priority is get through that lap 1 cleanly and then settle into the race. But I think with the 27 kilowatt hour, which is what we have available for the race today, it will make it a bit more of an energy focused race. So it definitely keeps us in the race. But it's not easy to overtake here, so we've got to get our head down, make positions, make sure we're efficient in the race, and just make the right strategy calls at the right time. So it's going to come down to it.
Goes without saying, it's going to be incredibly exciting. Thanks, James.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So exciting. It is indeed. Let's talk a little bit about, well, who's going to be the favourite to win? Can we predict it?
You are funny.
Thanks, Dario. Laughing behind my back rather than in front of me. Anyway, the fact that we've got the Gen 3 car here, I think is quite an interesting one, because obviously Jake Dennis, he's done well here in the past, but that was in the Gen 2 car. The Gen 3 car is a very different beast, and that's obviously why Nick Cassidy is doing so well with the grip, with the new tyres. So how much extra performance can we actually get out from Jake Dennis during, you know, what is it, 2 hours until the race gets underway?
I mean, a lot, and I think this man is key to tell us about that, because you were a member of the Andretti Formula E team. You know what they can and cannot achieve in a short amount of time.
Yeah, certainly. That team has been here in Formula E since the very beginning, and a lot of those mechanics, engineers, they've been around the paddock for that long as well, so they know what they're doing, they know what's at stake. A world championship here, there's just so much pressure. I could feel it, you know, along the garages. I want to go in there and give everyone a hug, because it's going to be all right.
Potentially, at the end of the day, you might be able to.
Yeah.
But you're so right, though, and it's also been a very long journey for Andretti. They were one of the first teams to join Formula E. Michael Andretti was there at the beginning in 2014. You know, they're one of the massive motorsport greats. This is everything.
Yeah, but do you remember some of the tough points for them when they were qualifying? I mean, consistently at the back, those mid sort of seasons, 4 or 5, they were really struggling, and then they've come back through. And as you went from being the factory BMW team to now a customer Porsche team, and they've taken that and they've run with it, and they've done such a good job with that powertrain.
Do you think it would mean more to Andretti to win than to Envision, or?
No, God, no, equally.
Oh, it means a lot for everybody. I mean, you can see Michael and his whole team from Indianapolis, they're here this weekend supporting that team, and Jake Dennis, and you can just feel how much it means. And to be here in London, we have a fantastic crowd, so many people here this weekend. I think, yeah, the excitement is just really building, and I feel it in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, and also, you know, bearing in mind, all of these teams, everyone involved, they live, sleep, breathe Formula E and of these moments. So this is it. We couldn't have created a better final showdown. We're going to see Jake Dennis, Nick Cassidy, the 2 championship contenders head to head at the start of the London E-Prix.